everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available as podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We always welcome your email questions and comments, dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lines.
Thank you very much, E-Man, and happy solstice to everyone, as well as Merry Christmas and many other things. And the stone cold truth is that we're just sitting here pigging out on Christmas cookies and picking nuts out of our teeth. Hey, man, the truth is tonight's episode is all going to be about the truth, because the truth is, regardless of what we feel about it, think about it, how we want it to be, reality is. Okay. You okay over there? The Christmas cookies are doing us in. And the truth is that it doesn't matter.
What doesn't matter?
Well, our opinions, and by our I mean all of our opinions about the truth, are really how most of us live our lives. We live our lives with our opinion about what's going on. And we can talk about it as being sort of the ego body, the ego self, the perception is reality part of us, the mental aspect, which is always judging. And what is it always judging? It's judging or trying to say two things almost at the same time in sort of a schizophrenic way. How do I feel about what's happening? And that's very, very important. How I feel about, and how I want it to be versus how it is. And oftentimes that spins into its own little, let's call it a pseudo-reality bubble, because how I want it to be is how I start reacting to what I think it should be. So in other words, instead of living in reality and realizing that nothing I do or say or feel is going to change the reality, I instantly fantasize about what it should be or could be or must be or ought to be, and then start living that reality or that pseudo-reality, reacting to what I think it should be rather than what it actually is. You divorce yourself from the present moment. You substitute the old phrase, Margaret, I reject your reality and substitute my own, is kind of where people end up. And unfortunately, for sometimes a large part, if not all of their lives, they live in a substituted reality where you get to say what should be, and then you get to react to what should be rather than what is. And the corollary to that is you put people in, they say absolute power, or power corrupts rather, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you have power, people who have power, people who run companies, people who run governments, people who get to, run classrooms or whatever it is, people who have power, it's a very short step from what I think it ought to be to I'm going to tell you what truth is. I'm going to decide what truth is because I have power. And power infuses from the third chakra, from the domination third. Which one is it? You're looking at me. One of those chakras. Anyway, power misused that way to impose one's own judgment on reality is what causes a lot of the pain, if you will, in this world.
Pain is the reason why most people run from truth.
That's true. Or the perception of pain, anyway.
Perception of pain?
If reality to you appears as though it's going to hurt you, you run from it because it's your perception rather than perhaps what is the thing that people do is they anticipate what reality is going to be. This is going to be bad, and they run from it rather than just let it be and see how it plays out. No, that's what I mean. That the fear is part of their substitution reality, if you will.
People have a tendency to tell themselves stories because they want to feel good about the present moment. Okay, so they immediately switch into this mental mode of telling themselves a story in order to make themselves feel better. And what are you feeling better from? Is my question. Are you basically not wanting, not wanting to have quiet around you? Because we had one woman when we were in Memorial Sloan Kettering. In the peds ward. She was our roommate. And we've told this before, but she never stopped talking. Every single thing she did, she talked about it. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do this. Just every single thing. And then I'd look at her, and she'd look at me. She goes, "Oh, I talk to myself all the time."
She was narrating her own life.
Right. And I'm looking at it like, wait, you talk to yourself all the time? It's like, oh, yes, I don't like silence. I talk to myself all the time. And my eyes were like wide open at that point. It's like, oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Well, I like where you went with that, but let's back up a little bit, because I did jump into the middle, and the truth is that we have really a lovely quote about this, about the truth, and I'm going to mess up his name, but I'm going to try. Miyamoto Musashi. That was pretty good, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna live with that. Miyamoto Musashi. Truth is not what you want it to be. It is what it is, and you must bend to its power or live a lie. And I think we rail against that. All of us collectively rail against that one part of truth, that we must bend to its power. Because we really, really want, in our little egoic selves, we really want to be powerful enough to say what will be.
I believe we're going back again to the American Indian way of looking at this world. We have come here to dream the common dream. But dreaming the common dream means that you have to have an agreed foundation and structure by which to interact with one another. If you never interacted with anyone, then you wouldn't have to do or say anything that you didn't want to do. And that's not what you came here to experience. I'd like to point that out.
Well, yes. And I think reality in and of itself, that which within which all consciousness resides, the universal consciousness, which is reality, has its own immutable presence. And I chose the word immutable on purpose from one point of view, that you cannot change reality. Reality is. Yet we do change through our actions what happens next in some regard. But the overall workings of reality are a constant being state. Reality never knows how not to be. We, on the other hand, because of the mix of spirit and matter that we are, try to ignore reality. We try to change reality. We try to fantasize about what reality should be and judge it and like it and dislike it. And in all these ways, we struggle with the beingness of reality rather than, as Tolle would say, and maybe as the American Indian Common Dream would say, you have to accept what is and then be within it. And then you have a couple of things you can do, and we've talked about this before. In the moment of now, you be, and then you can decide how you feel about now and what you will do next. But then the next moment of now doesn't mean that what you felt was considered, nor what you did was effective. It might have been, it might not have been. But the point being is that the next being moment of now is. And the only thing you can count upon, and the foundational part of the common dream, is that it will be different from the last moment of now. That reality also, in its immutability, is always constantly changing, which is sort of a nice paradox. It is immutably constantly changing.
Okay. The time stream changes. It is the nature of the time stream. The time stream was delineated so that you may experience what it means to be limited. The being that you are is unlimited at its core. Time stream was set down, and the field was set down in order for you to understand and experience what it is to react, to interact, to live as a limited being, and understand what that means. So when the reality, the truth, or is ever touched, response from a being who is not conscious is, don't bother me, I'm sleeping. That is the basis. And when I say that, I'm saying it in terms of the mind has preconditioned ideas and responses, and it defers immediately to those preconditioned responses. To be conscious is to be able to choose in that moment of awakeness the path that you're going to take. And it takes courage to do that because it allows for a broader field and taking in what is around you, usually others, not just what you want. So I look at it from this point of view.
Okay. I think what you're saying is exactly right in the sense of the broader consciousness, which becomes incarnate down here, and then therefore has to live in a limited way in the common dream under a set of rules. Call the rules whatever you wish. One of the
reality.
Well, one
reality
of the rules
is it's not made up. It's not chosen.
One of the rules is, as you just said, reality is not made up. It's not chosen. It is a limiting and immutable thing that we have to agree upon. Come down here. So you're here, and Miyamoto here is expressing that sentiment in the sense that from the point of view of incarnation, it's not what you want it to be. It is what it is. The central phrase here, the most important phrase in his statement, is it is what it is. And you can find that expressed in the teachings of the Buddha. You can find it expressed in the teachings of Christ. You can find it expressed in Tolle's The Power of Now. The A means A, which is Aristotle. A is A. It is what it is, and it is the struggle of this wanting it to be something else, or struggling against, basically putting yourself into living a lie, which are the other two sides of his statement, are what we do here when we are living egoically or living in a fantasy or mental, these mental constructs. So yeah, we come here to learn. We're given these tools, but the tools themselves turn upon us, the tools being the mental aspect and the emotional aspect. They turn upon us. They try to tell us we're in charge. I'm the mental aspect. I get to tell reality what to do. And I'm the emotional aspect. And if I don't like it, then I'm going to say I don't like reality and I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to take my marbles and go home. And, our consciousness has to reassert or understand that neither one of these yelling voices are important enough to be. They are just yelling voices, and you have to be around them and understand what they really are. But you still are here. You have a period of time, however brief, that you've agreed to come down and become take part in a limited existence, time-bound, matter-bound, and individuals interacting with each other and understanding that you can't do as though you were the only being in the universe. You have to cooperate and learn. So we come here seeking experience, seeking the consequences of living in a limited reality, because it's good for us, right? We're here for our benefit in many ways, to learn, to grow, to develop, to understand that the arising of consciousness requires struggle. It requires the struggle against the egoic, struggle against the emotion, the understanding of being, the understanding of now, the understanding that reality, being reality, has to be accepted, and that you therefore become one with the greater, with the all consciousness. All that is what we're doing here, and yet we're distracted by all the things we just talked about.
Yes. Allowing a place or making a space.
That's better.
For a being to learn what it means to be single, isolated, and then to expand outward and begin to interact with things outside of itself. Relationship is a word in English, where it is you and the other, whatever the other may be. Most people believe the other is always a person, but it is one of the things the other can be. It's mostly people, let's say, but
mostly.
Understanding that you have a relationship with reality, and if reality is the other, I believe that's where the rebellion rises, because the other is unchanging at that point. Reality does not change. And if it doesn't change, then it means that you feel you must change. And the human being does not want to feel forced into anything.
It's very interesting. I like that. You're right. Part of the rebellion is that we don't want to feel forced. But it begs a question, and I'll put it out there and you can answer it if you wish or not, are we being forced by reality? Or in one way we are, but it's a very impersonal sort of forcing. I think people think of forcing as somebody has power over you and they can tell you what to do.
Well, that's when you put the ego involved in it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If you look at it all in terms of when you agree to something, like a board game, and there are rules to the board game.
Yeah.
So, you landed on go to jail, so you're in jail.
Well, yes. And I think I would say that that's a very apt analogy, because people would like, in some ways, reality to be a board game that they could walk away from.
Right.
That they could kick over and say, I'm not going to play anymore.
Not happy.
I'm not happy. I'm not winning.
Not winning, I'm not happy.
And isn't that, the imposition of the word winning on reality is something that is so quintessentially human. Animals, other sparks of spirit here, really don't do winning. They do reality much better in many ways than human beings do. Because
absolutely.
Right, because human beings tie up the ego, and they tie up their own, let's call it their sense of self-worth, or their sense of self in general, in whether and people say, yeah, of course, you're either winning or losing. Well, no, I would say you're neither winning nor losing, but people are not satisfied with that. They want to be winning or losing, or they want to keep score in any way. In the sense that it's a game, they want to be ahead. They don't want to be. They don't want to finish last. They like to finish first. They want to have all the marbles. It's our fascination. In general, how popular games are, is in many ways sort of a microcosm of reality. You say, well, here's the game and here are the rules. Okay, tell me the rules. That's immediate. People want to know the rules. And then they want to know how you can win. What's the point of the game if you can't win? Well, I hesitate to say this, but I'll say it anyway. You can't win reality. Reality is not a game that you can win. It is a corollary which might make people feel a little bit better. You can't lose reality either. But people want to win reality. They don't even care very much that they could lose, but they want to win. You know what I mean? And in judging every moment of reality by whether I'm winning or losing, you're no longer living anymore.
That perspective is a power-based relationship, going back to what the definition of relationship is, and what you are in relation to. That is a power-based relationship. You're either winning or losing.
Right, over or under. Yeah.
Over or power under. And under those conditions, the person on top always feels good, and the person on the bottom always feels bad. The idea is to bring the relationship up to a heart level. When you bring something like that up to a heart level, you are there to enjoy the game, not necessarily to win or lose. And that's usually a mind blower for people. Like, why am I playing a game if I don't care if I win or lose? It's like, have you ever contemplated a state where it doesn't matter, but what matters is the interaction between you and the people around you? Because when you're in a power center, The other person only registers as like a packet of energy, of value. And if you're on top, you get the value.
Mm.
And if you're on bottom, you have to give the value.
But
what if the value is the people around you and not the energy they represent or the money they represent or the prestige they represent? What if it's them? What is it about them that would want you to have them next to you, close to you, interacting with you? Or is it only about that packet of energy, whatever it may be, about money or mission or...
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're talking winning and losing, you're talking ego, you're talking power. When you're talking about heart center, you move it up into it's much closer to the being. It's saying, my presence craves your presence. And when I am in your presence, in the presence of the other, the relationship, I feel good. And I want you to feel good. And the energy is not I get it, you get it. It's we start to exchange energy. Now it's a flow. The heart is more about energy flows. It's much more about balance. It's no longer keeping score at the heart level. You don't care about score at the heart level. You care about score when you're winning or losing. And in moving upward into this type of heart-based reality, you've moved away from the spirit of the animal, because the animal spirit of reality isn't heart-based, but it also isn't winning or losing based. It's kind of below there. It's at an existence level, at a reality of I do what needs to be done. It's a essential reality. I eat because I'm hungry. I sleep because I'm tired. I drink because I'm thirsty. That's it. It's extremely reality based, but it has no heart. It's not winning or losing either in one regard. Not the same sort of heart. I know there is some heart there.
There is heart, but it's a different. You need a different word there. It's life in its 3D form. The animal kingdom has its own interactions and its own interrelationships. It is not a human one in that sense. There is an aspect of human animal in it, and that's why we can relate. All right, but we have a potential or a way of evolving into a much broader form. All right, it's very different because it is a consciousness. Human being has to do with consciousness, oneself, and understand what it's seeing. Animal in general does not recognize itself and understands that it can project forward or remember. All right, it's very different mindsets. That's why it's so important to remember that if you really love your animal, whatever pet you may have, treat it acknowledging the animal aspect. Do not treat it as a human. If anything, you're insulting the poor beast.
Well, yes. But there's a certain cleanliness to the essential being state of the animal.
It is who it is. It's not trying.
Exactly.
A cat is not trying to be a dog.
No.
You know, it's a human.
And it wouldn't even have the concept of trying to be a dog.
See, this is why they look. People have coined the phrase of humans being the sick animal.
And in some ways, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at us purely animalistically, you know what? Let's look at this. Let's take this animalistic aspect and take it into the break. And on the other side, we'll talk more about truth.
Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is Book 1 of the Adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Thank you for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And we were talking about the cleanliness of the existence of the animal, of the life of the animal, and the fact that humans are sometimes referred to as the sick animal, if you will. And I think that the sickness would be, in what you said last as we went into the break, is that a cat never wants to be a dog, because a cat knows it's a cat,
Right.
and it's quite content with itself. Its identity, the A of an animal is, I've never ever, not even the concept. I'll answer for more wives to this point. They don't say I, but an animal never fantasizes about what it would be like to not be a cat, But yet human beings, we do that all the time. Now, it's a superpower in one regard of ours,
we have imagination, so let's pretend we can pretend that we're kitty cats or something, you know. So that's not normal in the animal world.
No, it's completely in essence sick. But the reason we have, one of the reasons we have that superpower is because we have the egoic, and because we have the mental, and because we have the emotional. We can project through a combination of these things, but through our mental aspect and our emotional aspect, what we might want our reality to be. But it can become, as you mentioned, a sickness. It can become a neuroses. It can become a psychosis. And we have words for these things because when somebody spins their energy, spins their life force into something which is so much in denial of what is, of either their basic identity or the basic reality of what is now. We say that they're psychotic or they're neurotic because they no longer are dealing. A psychotic break is a break from reality. You're no longer dealing with what is. You're dealing almost exclusively, rather, with a fantasy of one type or another. And our minds are so powerful, our egos are so powerful that they can take all of our basic energy, the driving forces of life, of our life forces, and spin them up into these, into inflating these non-reality balloons, to the point where you become a very sick animal. You become destructive of your own life. You're no longer in that state. You're no longer developing in relationship with others. You're no longer developing in true relationship with reality. There's a relationship with reality. You're in a psychosis. You're now in an echo chamber of your own creation, where nothing is truly real, and you're no longer getting experience. You're just talking to yourself. The lady that you spoke about in the last half hour, it was sort of a neuroses to constantly talk to oneself.
Yeah, and that is what you're finding, is that people, now it doesn't matter if people are speaking out loud and there's nobody around them, because they could be on the phone, they could be listening to something, they could be doing, so everybody goes, oh yeah, they're just talking.
It used to be crazy, but no more. Now It's okay.
It wasn't considered normal. You're talking to what?
You're talking out loud.
You're talking out loud, and at this point, and it's interesting because people are doing that, not necessarily talking to another person. They're talking to the screen. They're talking to something that they've read or some video that's there. How aware are they of their moment now? Or are you always going through that screen, the portal, to another place? If anything, the phones we have and the computers we have makes it very obvious that our attention is certainly not in the now. It's someplace else. And if you want to know where you've been, all you have to do is go to your phone and say, oh yeah, I went there, and I went there, and I went there.
It's keeping track.
But I am never here. I'm always there, through that screen.
Well, and in this statement, going back to Musashi's statement, the last phrase, the last part of his statement is, you must bend to its power or live a lie. And I think what you just said, if you say this to someone, you're living a lie, they might rightly get offended. What do you mean I'm living a lie? But if you truly think about it, in your own way, as you just said, every time you're interacting with a video, let's say, or with something which is not happening now, it's happening, maybe it happened, maybe it's going to happen, whatever, but you're no longer living in the moment. You're in essence living a lie. The word lie, Margaret, has these negative connotations. It feels like, a falsehood. It feels like you're trying to deceive. But in truth, it is a falsehood. It is, in essence, a self-deception that you're putting yourself through. And if you do nothing more, if all you do on a daily basis, 24/7, 365, is live outside of the moment, you're feeding a very, I'll say dangerous, but really just a sort of a wasteful or you're feeding your energy into something which is not gaining you experience, true experience.
You're not living in a relationship that feeds you.
Yeah.
A back and forth. Relationships grow.
Yes.
Okay. And you may be getting information or whatever you may need from your screen, whichever screen you happen to be using. That's fine. Or, reading a book.
Yeah.
Getting information from that. But if you think of it that way, you're having a relationship with a book? Having a relationship with your phone? Understanding that the phone originally started as a venue by which you were able to interact with the other person on the other end.
Right.
Now, you get all kinds of information, all kinds of movies, all kinds of video, all kinds of music, all kinds of instruction. But how do you choose to utilize the portal? Who's doing the choosing at this point? That is always the question. What's motivating it? And it has a tendency to cover over the fact that something truthful may make you feel uncomfortable. So you decide immediately, well, I'm going to watch this other video because this is not as heavy or is not as
Uncomfortable.
irksome
Yep.
as this other point that's coming to me that makes me feel uncomfortable. Or because it's true.
Well, isn't that an interesting statement? It kind of echoes what Miyamoto says here, is that the truth is not what you want it to be. And that makes you uncomfortable.
And the truth we have right now is the fact that it's so easy to avoid it.
Well, yes, or in some ways it was always easy. Well, no, I take it back. It is certainly easier than it ever has been, but there was always a tendency for human beings to try to avoid the truth. Let me just give you if you're using alcohol or other substances to deaden your senses, you're trying to avoid, in many cases, you're trying to avoid pain, or you're trying to avoid the reality, If you're using distraction, rather than have a real relationship, have many relationships for sex or for pleasure or for whatever. These are ways of distracting you from the reality. So we've always, and now today it's just as easy as it possibly can be, and to at every moment of the day, every waking hour, keep yourself in a state where you're not living in the moment, that you're living somewhere else, in your portal.
What I'd like to suggest is that when you realize that you're actually doing this, that you're just in your portal to be distracted, actually sleeping.
Yeah.
If that registers in your head, I'm actually sleeping. I'm not really. And I'm not saying it's all bad. You do need to sleep sometimes, okay? Distraction. Can't be on all the time. But there is, where something hits you and it's almost too real. I wish I had a word to describe the feel that you hit a point that is so real that all you can do is want to take a half a step back. It's like, oh. And at that moment, you can decide to make space for it or run away.
Yeah. At that point that you just brought up there, when you are in this mode of totally distracting yourself, and you say you might realize suddenly that you're being distracted, you're sleeping. But there's another aspect. Reality may intrude. Reality does intrude. And I think if you've spent perhaps an inordinate amount of time in this, let's call it the sleeping state, the distracted state, that when reality intrudes, it feels like a personal attack. It feels as though you're being attacked by reality. Why me arises. It always happens to me. Nothing good ever happens to me. These reactions are because you were asleep all this time, and not understanding that reality is that why not you, or there's nothing to say that it's not you. At any given moment of your existence, reality may intrude. When reality truly rises up, events, the actual events of existence, disease or whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, something happens which you cannot fantasize away. That wakes. It does feel you're woken from your comfortable slumber, and the cold, harsh light of reality shines in, and you feel attacked. If you're living in reality or regularly waking up to deal and be in reality, you know that these things happen. That there is an objective reality which cannot be denied, which you must bend to, and that when it becomes a situation, something which intrudes upon you and you must deal with, you're prepared. You say, yeah, okay, I'm capable. I've dealt with this before. I know I have a trust in my own being state. I'm willing to trust that even though right now it looks like it's going to be this, it might be something that I don't understand. I'm willing to trust in myself, trust in reality, trust in God, give myself the providence, the grace. These channels, these avenues, especially the avenue of grace, is something that you're familiar with because you need it. If you're in the sleeping state, you're not utilizing any of those things. They may be there for you, but you're not utilizing them. As in many things, if you don't use a muscle, it weakens, it atrophies, it becomes something which you don't even know you have. And in that moment, when you're awoken suddenly from this fantasy, this slumber, you're completely at a loss. You go from 0 to 60, right? You go from everything's just fine and dandy to, oh my God, who am I? Where am I? What am I? You're overwhelmed.
You can be overwhelmed, yes. Especially if you've decided that the sleep state that you were in other words, everything that you were wanting to see and you just dove right in it, or wanting to listen to and agreeing with whatever's being said, wanting to participate in or watch. All that, you basically decided that that's your life. Yeah, that's the way it should be. Everything that comes through this venue, it's got to be this way. This is my happy place.
My happy place. Very good.
And you go, who said that you have to be happy all the time? Because the underlying assumption of that is that that's where I'm supposed to be. And you people are supposed to keep me there.
There you go. How dare you? How dare you make me not happy?
Well, that is the underlying attitude or of the levels when because we've all interacted with people who have been really involved in certain things. When you are trying to get a response from them, they're more than a little annoyed at you. And when you really get into it, you're looking at it going, so, you were asleep, weren't you?
Yes.
And I'm waking you up.
Right.
Oh.
And you get attacked for it.
Well, listen, you don't have to be crabby at me.
Right.
It's understanding that sometimes your sleep state is a drain on somebody else, and I'm not putting up with it.
Well, that's a good example. But that whole idea of a sleep state, I love this analogy that you've come to, that you're sleeping. People will argue, no, I know what's going on. No, you're in a neurosis or psychosis, an echo chamber of your own creation.
You are creating this little eye bubble.
Yes, an eye bubble.
This is your eye bubble sleep state.
Yep.
Just embrace it. Own it, because you made it.
Yes. But then when reality intrudes, or you run into somebody who's unwilling to, they're unwilling to play along, let's say, to suffer your dream state, and they want to wake you up a little bit. But even reality, impersonally, will do the same thing.
Well, it's just that reality is, and that which is life, does intrude, and it always will. That is a foundational tenet that most people don't want to embrace.
Right.
Oh no, you're the reason why I'm feeling this way.
Right.
Instead of sitting there going, you've been sitting in a bubble all this time,
right,
not caring about anything else outside your bubble, but you're sitting in my living room.
And what is reality except what Miyamoto says? It's truth. And I think this is something which also, when one has become very comfortable with choosing what you want to call truth, and using the word truth in the sense of my truth, your truth, their truth, our truth, and everyone's got their own truth, or relativism we often talk about. Reality has no relativism. It has no nuance. It has nothing but truth.
Reality based on truth, immutable.
Immutable.
It is not what you want it to be. It is not what you think it should be. It is not what you've thought about all this time and put together this concept that you think this is the way reality must be working. It's like you're giving me a paper airplane and I've got to fly to Florida. Hello?
Right. And in its perfect truth, because this reality has a perfect truth. In its perfect truth, it will intrude. Now, what can you do with reality? You can understand reality. In fact, if you are truly a scientist, not someone who's trying to get a grant from the government, but a true scientist, your mission is to very deeply understand reality, not tell reality what it's going to be. That's the antithesis. It's to observe and deduce and then test, the old wonderful hypothesis scientific method. But it doesn't matter. Don't put any words on it. Just say that you say, I think reality is like this, and then reality says nope, and then you have to say, okay, reality, you are truth. You always win. I was wrong. And those words, the last three, I was wrong, is what you always have to use when faced by reality. Because what you're really saying is, I acknowledge the truth of reality and I bend to its power. It is immutable. It is what it is. And to the extent that you sit there and go, yep, reality is always right. It's always true. Maybe I don't understand it, but it's always on me to understand it. Reality doesn't sit there and goes, I'm going to try to understand you. I'm going to make accommodations. Reality goes, no. I ain't accommodating nothing. I'm reality. You know, it just is. It's truly a being state.
Yes. And the being state, what I find fascinating is that mindset does not take that in. Understanding that truth is real and unchangeable. That kind of person really does not need to be in charge of anybody's life.
Should never be.
Because that kind of person will always make a decision for his or her best interest and not really care about you or anybody else that they're in charge of.
Right.
That should be a red flag for all of us.
Right.
It's like, you can't be in charge because you believe that truth is relative.
Or that you can tell reality what to do rather than the other way around.
Truth is relative is a more basic thought form. Because then you're like, well, that means that I can change things around to be comfy.
Right. And the uncomfortable truth is that we've reached the end of our hour.
Okay. Well, I'm Margaret.
She is truly Margaret. And I am Mike.
Thank you for listening.